I'd like to introduce Jason and Tom, who will be going over Expensify open source, past, present, and future.
Thank you, thank you. Cool, so open source, past, present, and future. Really what Tom and I wanted to do today is just give you a general overview, just like Dan did earlier today. We've done a lot, but you're probably wondering, like, why did you even do this, right? Like, what is the past that led you to this? Then really, how are things going? Let's kind of like check in on that. And then two, hopefully we'll have a little bit of back and forth as well, like a brainstorming on really what the future can be like. So let me get this, and that's me. No, I'm Jason. I've been here at Expensify for about 12 years. I'm the Chief Product Officer, so I'm supposed to make the product badass and high quality, do my best. I think basically, really though, what I'm focused on, and actually Tom as well, is just we have this big initiative of, we have this old platform that we're just not gonna use anymore, we're kind of gonna throw away eventually. And we gotta bring everything over to this new platform. So Tom, I'll let you take it away.
Hey guys, I'm Tom. I feel sometimes like that guy, where it's like, you may remember me from a GitHub issue some point. But yeah, I've been at Expensify for around 7-8 years now. I'm one of the first hires out in the London office. So spent a lot of my early years focused on like growth in the region and things like that. Since then, I've been involved in like the early starts of other outsourced programs we've had, like the Guides program. And like Jason, right now, I'm also involved in roadmap and pushing forward reunification and stuff like that.
Cool, so I guess every good story starts with a once upon a time. So let's kind of look into our crystal ball. Let's go back into the past a little bit and visit 2020. So that's kind of the canvas we're dealing with in 2020. And, it looks decent, but it's also like an expense reporting app, right? Like, this is the app you use if you need to get paid back because you're traveling for business and you have various expenses that you incur, right? But again, it's an expense reporting app. And to be fair, like at this point, we'd pretty much dominated that industry. We're competing against like enterprise apps that are honestly kind of bad. Like some of them don't even have a mobile app. So this was like, whoa, this is sweet. Like, we're winning, right? But there's still a big disconnect. And a big disconnect because I think Dan actually talked a little bit about this. But like this disconnect between, this is an expense reporting app, and we have these grand visions, right? Of get rich, have fun, save the world. And I think one thing we kind of realized really, right? Like working on expense reporting is that every kind of financial transaction, there's some kind of tension to resolve, right? And that tension involves collaboration, it involves conversation. And then, as I said, it kind of also involves tension when the person that is supposed to pay you back doesn't. And so really, again, this is what we had, and there was a big disconnect between where we wanted to go all the way to, right, in the future, like 1 billion users. And I think what's kind of interesting about this, again, like it looks pretty good, but where's the collaboration? Like, where's the conversation? Oh, you just got to scroll down, and it's like below the scroll view. And then we had this box. And the funny thing about this box was like, okay, it wasn't even real time at the time. It was like, you would put something in the chat input, and then you would receive an email. And then you go back into the app. So again, just 2020, we realized there was a big, big gap between where we wanted to go and where we currently were. And so then we were like, okay, maybe what we do is, let's put like a chat widget on top of our expense reporting app. But the issue is kind of like, well, it's still an expense reporting app, right? Like, okay, this is a little bit more collaboration, but it's certainly not a winning strategy. And they were like, maybe what we'll do is we'll create a secondary nav. Because we already had this thing called the inbox you can kind of see over there. And that was an existing page in our navigation hierarchy, right? It's like, all right, well, there's kind of a connection between messages, inbox, but ultimately that's kind of more like Gmail, less like Slack or Discord or anything else. We're like, we got to do something like very different, very, very different. And also, like, that just wasn't the extent of the problems that we were facing. Like, having collaboration front and center is one thing, right? But then another thing is like, wow, the experience is wildly different. Like, web is super different than mobile. So as an example, like, if you wanted to just filter a search for anything, yeah, you could pretty much do that on web, but I mean, it's kind of like busy, sure, but you could do it, right? That Starbucks spins from like, I don't know, 3 weeks ago. You could find it. Web is just kind of like, yeah, you just scroll as fast as possible, and that's like the best you could do. And you might say like, well, okay, but you know, like, you don't always need everything on mobile on web. But I think really what we would say is, kind of do, actually, because like otherwise someone's gonna have a question, and people invariably have questions. It's like, okay, well, are you on web, are you on mobile? Well, this is how you do it, X, Y, Z. So it actually became like really important to us. So on the one hand, financial collaboration being front and center and needing just an entirely different front end and new approach. But then on the other hand, just really creating more consistency. And that's where we just kind of realized like, wow, we have to innovate with urgency. And like, it took us 10 years, so it took us a decade to build an expense reporting app that was pretty cool for expense reporting app. But we needed to do everything faster in order to just completely change the front end, make chat front and center. And so this actually happened at the tail end of 2020. We didn't have any community, but we had the makings of it because we took this huge bet, right? We took this huge bet of just saying that old app, it is what it is. We're gonna do something completely new. We open sourced, our app repo. We at least posted jobs on Upwork. I wouldn't even necessarily say we recruited them quite yet, but that was the goal, right? And then we did an open beta for everyone, right? We allowed anyone to sign up for the app, and this is kind of what it looked like very different. I think we could arguably say like, yeah, chat's pretty front and center on this one. So we nailed that. But we still had a lot to do, right, Tom?
Totally. So I think then we went into 2021 as the year we call, figuring it all out, or the year of the noobs. So with that one, if Jason, you could click for me.
Yeah.
This one. So this year was very much like the React Native code base was pretty new to everybody internally. So we were figuring out just like how to operate, how to work with that technology. Next up, as a team, we were pretty inexperienced with running open source communities, like what expectations you guys have from us, what we can expect from you, and just figuring all that out in terms of how it's going to work. And really, we had a sort of minimal process in place. And that's fine in itself. Like, you don't want to develop a huge process only to just go and unravel it once you realize all the things that you didn't know and you thought you knew. But it did mean that we, went into a bit of a free-for-all, could you say. So it was just like bugs, features, polish, performance. People could just do whatever, I think at the time we had like a minimal requirement. You have to prefix your Slack post with bug or feature, and then just go forth and do it, And so that naturally led to a point where we had this tsunami of incoming, like growing bugs in the repo that we would inevitably at some point need to fix. And it was quite funny, like you'd update the app one day and then be like, oh shit, when did that happen? Who did that? Like, why does it work that way? And so, yeah, really we went into our write it down phase. It's something that we do deem to be very important at Expensify. It's how we can pick something up, make it better for the next person that comes along. And so that manifested itself in things like the contributing guidelines, style guides. We got a bit better at, taking a view on what that was so that we could clearly communicate that to everybody. And then importantly, and this one goes back to Jason's point around cross-platform consistency, given that we hold that in such high regard, we started to put the building blocks of that sort of early framework in place, meaning you can't just write a PR, test it on web, be like, yep, works great, ship it. And then it's completely broken on other platforms. And so that was really important for us as well in 2021 to start taking that. yeah, and all the while the community was continuing to grow, and that was awesome to see. We recognized that there were certain people that were like more active than others. They were, get involved in conversations and so on. And so, yeah, we really wanted to make sure that we could provide a growth opportunity for those people in the community. So we introduced the Contributor Plus program, which was really awesome. And then the other side of that was that with all this information we started to write down and understand the process, we were really able to force multiply the way that we approached proposal reviews, hopefully start tackling some of this mountain of bugs that we've grown, and really just innovate with urgency, which was a key pillar of what we wanted to do.
Cool. So if basically 2020 is about making a big bet, realizing that the path that we were on, it wasn't the right path to get us where we needed to go. And then 2021 was about like, okay, we're just gonna throw paint on the wall, see what sticks. 2022 then is really about just roping it all in, really taking a lot of things that we've started to figure out around quality, around performance, what mattered, what didn't. And so I think a big thing that we did internally that I guess, most of you probably have visibility on is it's a team, but also a concept, a company-wide concept, Bug Zero. So if you even go back to our old app, we would have basically this Bug Zero concept, but we only did it for okay, cool, we're gonna do this for a month. And then, bugs obviously go down and then we kind of forget about it and then bugs go back up. So it's kind of like this cycle, right? Undulating. But really 2022 was the first time we're no, this is a thing. It's a thing from now, starting into the future. It's a state of being for Expensify, right? It's a permanent state of being. And so the way that we did this was literally we said, okay, actually the majority of the company is gonna be involved in helping make sure that bugs are resolved in a pretty short amount of time, within a month. And Puneet's gonna talk a lot more about this, so I won't go into great detail, but it was kind of a sea change for this company because now literally as of 2022, 2/3 of the company is actively involved with you, our community, our contributors, but then also kind of owning bugs from the start to the finish. And that's also a change because before I was okay, someone comes in, they test, they triage, then it goes to someone else. It's just a revolving door until eventually something gets fixed. If it's exactly what it started with, we don't know. And so we changed it such that we have a team of people, right, that are with the issue. And you probably see this in GitHub. It's people are assigned really from the beginning all the way until when the PR is merged and the regression period is passed. And so maybe this is standard elsewhere, but it was kind of a big deal for us and something that I think we're pretty excited about to this day. We're also excited about it because it caused us to have to interact with the community and widen the scope of who we interacted with. Maybe some of you here were from the very beginning, that's super cool. But then also as we started to just try to figure out some of these more gnarly bugs. I guess the one I can think of is one that Hannah was helping us on virtualized list, I believe it was. But regardless, it was just super gnarly. And we do not know how to fix this. And then I think it was a couple weeks. Yep, done, cool, we're good. And so it just allowed us to really engage more people that had a variety of expertise. And it helped us really learn about who we were as a company, but also how we can, be a part of the React Native community as well. And another point I guess to make is really around upstream versus our own code and forks and things like that. And I think we've learned as well, let's just take the slow path. We want to fix upstream. We want to give back to the community, even if it's all the way to the React Native core. And we really want to avoid as much as possible all our own forks. So obvious stuff, but it's something that came as a result of Bug Zero as well. And then finally, 2022 was not just about looking outward, it was about looking inward. And I think one of the prevailing philosophies is certainly when we were just really trying to gun for, we're gonna be the best at expense reports, it's what's the smallest thing we can do that gives us the greatest value? And really, I think 2022 was a start of like, no, we're going to start planning, thinking, pre-designing, if you're familiar with that term, where we just think about how a long-term design should look and work. And we did that for two important things, which will actually also be presentations this week. First would be offline first. So basically, again, as we started getting bug reports, it's like, oh, well, a lot of this stuff just is because the app, it fails pretty miserably on an internet connection, let alone like fully offline. And so we did a lot of changes, so we have optimistic IDs on the front end and things like that, so the app just doesn't break in those scenarios. And then two would be API Unchained. So just the realization that like we click one button and like there's a ton of API calls that result just on the click of that one button. That's not the greatest per performance, right? And so those are two big things that you may have probably seen if you saw some of our updates in open source, but they were absolutely like huge initiatives. In fact, Offline First was an initiative that we did on our offshore, which was one of the trips that we took, I think it was to Spain last year. So a lot of cool stuff that came not just outward, but also inward as a result of 2022. So
on the topic of results, we thought that, ECX, this forum where we were able to get everybody together in a room, it would be good to, go forth and sort of recap and celebrate some of our successes. And so, first of all, I think that everybody's probably realized this one by now. The visual design refresh is so slick. Every time I look at it, I'm just completely in awe of where we're at and really how that maps to our consumer first ideals. So a huge, thanks to Sean, the guys at TCW, that really helped bring that one to life.
Yeah, and the other one kind of alluded to this, but we went from literally hundreds of bugs to basically having 0 bugs that are over 4 weeks old. And yes, okay, there's some asterisks around this, specifically around it's like PRs in review, and then we have some things in the repo that are on hold because of larger designs and things that we're working on. But this is pretty incredible. Maybe this is normal elsewhere you've seen it, but for us, we're like, wow, this is pretty awesome that we achieved this in the span of really just a span of several months. And again, Puneet will go into a lot more detail on that. Maybe some other highlights?
Yeah, and some of the numbers, I think the one that really points out to me on this one is the fact that we are truly a global community at this point, with people contributing in over 32 different countries, which is just incredible in such a short period of time. And the community, we went over that 1 million barrier this year, which was insane. 1.2 million earned from people in the community.
Yeah, actually, speaking of 1.2 million, it's kind of crazy if you just look at, wow, where did we come from and where are we going? And so, actually, if you get shit done with us, you get paid as well. And I think we're pretty excited. This is more or less the definition of exponential hockey growth right there. And I talked a lot about before, bug zero is a new thing, but it's also not the only thing. So we started there because obviously the foundation has to be strong. But, and we'll talk about this in a bit, we'd love to get the community more involved in actually feature development as well. So really cool stuff here. Maybe keep going on.
Yeah, and some more on this one as well. So, we absolutely doubled the number of contributors that, submitted PRs. In terms of those numbers, that was around 1,600 PRs that were reviewed and submitted last year, and we logged over 1,000 bugs. But the real exciting one, I think, is that, our timeline, because of the urgency bonus initiative that we put in place, we were able to decrease that time from 5 days to 2 days, to get the PRs merged, which was just incredible.
Yeah, and also there's a ton of stuff on this slide. Maybe picking the first one and maybe recognizing people specifically. So we have this thing we do internally we call growth recognition. And the idea is, Expensify is a very flat organization, but we still want to give people the opportunity to achieve great things and then recognize them for those great things. And we kind of wanted to just give it a shot first year, right? Extending this concept to contributors as well. And so I think the first really cool thing is we went from literally 1 contributor plus member in 2021 to basically 10xing in 2022 by the end of the year. So now we have 11. And many of, there's several of you actually in the audience. So just big shout out. Let's give a round of applause to these guys.
Yeah, right, guys. Yeah, do like a wave or something.
Yeah,
Like,
wave your
hey,
hand.
There you
Yeah.
go.
Thanks for coming. Thanks for this is a big deal, right? Because it's hard at scale to make sure we're solving root causes, that our proposals and the solutions that they bring bear are really good ones. And this is the team at the front lines doing that. In addition to just helping us make sure let's try to avoid as many regressions as possible. So shout out to these guys. Maybe moving on.
Yeah, next up we have pretty straightforward, most PRs submitted. I think, Peter, you're here, right? So,
Yeah.
big round of applause. I know you've been dealing with some gnarly bugs for us recently, so thanks.
Cool, moving on. We talked a lot about collaboration, right? So we need to have something that actually rewards people for helping us just be a part of the community, an active member. So both Rajat and Anik, I don't think either are here, but still, let's give them a round of applause.
Yeah.
Okay,
And last but not least, our QA All-Stars, which I know you're here, and you just went,
whoa.
And look, thank you. I know you've triaged and dealt with a lot of regression tests this year, which has probably done your head in. But thanks for all your efforts. This has been super cool. Thanks.
Yeah. All good?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, so we spent a lot of time on the past. Obviously, we do need to focus on the future, right? And I think this is where you come in. Tom and I, we were putting our heads together. We do have some ideas. And I think the easy one is, we already talked about this in the keynote. We need to dog food. We need to dog food more, right? So really the easy way to do that is this year, who knows when, but we're absolutely gonna deprecate Slack. We're gonna move the entirety of the community over to Expensify. And let's have a great conversation about what it's gonna take to do that. So again, just kind of bouncing ideas. Tom and I like Threads. That's probably a pretty obvious one. When you have hundreds of people talking in one room, Threads are an immense way to help keep the conversation focused. The one that kind of struck me as well is if you look at our Expensify bugs room, video playback's pretty huge in that room. And at the moment it's pretty awkward. You gotta download it, you gotta view it somewhere else. So let's close that gap. These are just two. There's way more than this. But let's actually agree that this is something we're gonna do and let's all work towards that together.
Yeah, and if anybody's got any ideas right now that just jump into your head, obviously chuck them in the room. We chat about them and stuff after. That'd be really cool. But yeah, next up on dog fooding, I think we're building an app where you can request money and send money, and it's insane that we wouldn't move to a world where the contributors would get paid back through Expensify. So with initiatives that we have around global payments and things, that should be able to be possible in the near-term future. So very much looking forward to dog fooding, request money together.
Yeah.
Cool.
Then as well, this one, it's a bit farther out, but obviously collaboration is written, but it's also talking to people face to face, right? Or I guess virtual face to face. But this is something we've actually been talking about for a while. We have some early designs for, and the reason we mention it here is because we actually have a rule internally. Once a thread or a conversation or whatever gets to 100 replies, we step back, we actually get on a call and we discuss things live because just something's not working. And this has been a great strategy, collaboration strategy for us, just helping break that barrier and get to the solution and build consensus around it. So those are kind of 3 dog fooding things. Again, they're not the only one. Like Tom said, share your ideas in the room. Maybe just moving on. So besides dog fooding, I think obviously a key is we want you to feel more a part of Expensify, and we want to be more a part of obviously the React Native community at large and just creating our own community. And so, we do want to build the future better, faster, stronger, in the wise words of Depeche Mode, I think it is, right?
Daft Punk.
Yeah, okay. Didn't want to misquote that, so that's why I checked. But obviously, Expensify X is a part of that. You're going to hear the wild talk from David. It's going to be amazing. We also are talking a little bit more about immediate roadmap later this week. And then, I think we said this, but if 2022 is really about just getting control of bugs, we need to keep that. But then we also need to like start bridging into features as well. And so there's a ton, as we know, there's this gap that we have to fill. So features are a good way to do that as well.
Yeah, and so that's really what we've prepared for today. Last up, we have the Q&A. So if you have been writing questions, thank you. We'll take a look. But really, we just wanted to open the floor. We do this thing at Expensify called 360. So we have put some prompts there, but complete open floor, and thank you.
Yeah. No questions?
Anybody?
Or do we have any, actually, moderator, do we have any in the room? No? Okay.
There's got to be the first one. It's always the
Yeah.
hardest. Oh, yeah, him. Hi, Gary.
Oh, you know.
What's the feature you're actually most excited about for in the future? I get the dog food stuff's really like cool.
Yeah.
Like, what's the weird thing that you would want?
The weird thing?
Yeah.
I mean, like, I really wanted reactions up until last week, and now I'm like, yes! So I think mentions, for me, is one that I really want. I think we definitely need that if we're going to bring the community over.
Yeah, I mean, I would just mention the one we had, because I think we need threads so bad in so many ways. So I think that's the one I'm most excited about. Yep.
Yeah, so there was this one slide with the earnings.
Oh, yeah.
Did that refer to money that you paid to contribute?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
So it's 1.2 million that
Yeah.
Expensify paid to.
exactly.
For the video,
yeah.
the question was on the slide before, was the earnings what we earned or what the contributors earned? But yes,
Yeah,
it's
it's
what the community
contributors.
earned from us, what we paid out.
So let's make that number bigger, right? Let's see. Go back here. Anything else? Yeah.
Currently, there's the five environments that the app is currently working on. Is there any date for the Windows application to need if Windows applications arrive? Because there's currently only Mac.
Yeah. And specifically officially supporting and testing and all that. Oof, that's a tough one. I mean, it's inevitable, right? There's not a timeline to answer your question specifically. But I do think, I would just say generally, it's inevitable, especially if like, you can't have this goal of 1 billion users and Windows isn't part of that. But I think it's still not an immediate term thing. Like, maybe just even building on that, I would say like, I would probably rather, like, if I have to choose, I'd rather take like, let's get to one mobile app first, right? And that's still a bit farther out than Windows. That's what I would take first. Yeah, Berto. Hey, man. Hey.
So right now, our features can only participate in the front end part of the code. Are there any plans in the future to move the rest of the code base?
Oof, man.
It's a good question.
It is a good question. It's definitely. I mean, yeah, Bedrock is. Bedrock even predates, right? It's officially open source. I think, maybe just me, like in this reunification thing is like, got a lot of work to do. I feel like we should focus on that first. Can we do more? Sure.
Yeah, I think once, if we can really dial in the front end, and, I think last year was a great year for us in terms of WhatsApp quality and really getting to like on top of the bug hump, but, we've still got quite a way to go before we're like, I'll do the back end as well. So I think, yeah, reunification takes priority.
I mean, what I like about that question is it's very ambitious. Like, let's definitely not stop here.
Yeah.
There is the prospect of just kind of completing it in the more immediate term what we set out to do. So maybe there's a balance in the longer term for that one. Any other questions? No?
I have something, it's not kind of a question, but
Sure.
When I started, my first issue was about getting rid of a set timeout code in the code. That was the ticket in enough work, my first job. So I don't know what Expensify is about. I just saw it's easy to remove this set timeout. So I was just focused on that specific.
Yeah.
But it led me to go to the root of that, some other stuff that's involved with that. So, but what I'm trying to say is that I don't actually get how the app worked. For me, it was a chat at that stage, so I was just trying to figure out messaging because the functionality was there. It was about that specific. But I still don't fully understand how I'm supposed to do that. Do I need to be an accountant for a company owner How am I supposed to do to use it so I can see if there's a problem with that?
Well, I think it's a good question. I would say the gap there, and maybe we'll talk a little bit more about this in like a day or two. We have a whole roadmap that's bringing the accounting functionality built on top of chat into this new platform. What we have right now is honestly mostly a placeholder that's meant to more or less mimic somewhat splitwise type functionality. The accounting functionality is coming, again, this is actually a whole talk, so actually I'm glad you asked the question, but it's kind of like 2 phases in our roadmap out. And at that point, the kind of stuff you're talking about where a company, maybe your own company, right? You could use Expensify, including the accounting features. So not exactly a question, but like, I think the roadmap is a big topic. We need to talk about that one almost in its own talk entirely.
Yeah. And to your point around, do you need to be an accountant to be able to use Expensify? We really hope the answer to that is no. We want to make it as simple as possible for anybody that has some kind of conversation in around the payment.
And actually, that's a really good point because like coming back to where we started, right? If you look at that app, like as just a person, let's say like you're just getting started for the first time, you see all these words you'd never seen before, like expenses, receipts, reports, and then obviously it goes even farther, just a lot of accounting terminology. And so a key thing actually that is going to be difficult, but that we're striving for is like, let's like request money as an example. So in a business context, if you're requesting money from your friends, it's just like it's a person-to-person transaction. If you're a company requesting money from another company, all of a sudden that's what's called an invoice, right? And so a big actual like goal of the new platform is to have this functionality under the hood, but to make it a lot more accessible and not like, okay, if you do this, it's that, right? Invoice, or if you do this other thing, it's like, no, it's all just requesting money. If it gets to the accounting system in the way it should, you're good, right? So actually, I think that's a really, really key point for us.
Yeah, totally.
Cool. Yeah, Neil.
Bit more of a technical question.
All right, let's see what we can do.
Got to meet some of the software mention guys this morning, and they were asking me why don't we use TypeScript.
Oh, that's Hanno's got the same question. He's already asked it. I think that's a big one, actually. I think what we should do on that is probably bring that conversation back to the forefront this week, because we had it. We had a little get together with Margello in San Francisco a couple, I guess, months ago at this point. And it seems to be a pretty recurring theme.
Rory, were you looking into it more?
No.
Oh.
We talked about it and then that was it.
Yeah. There we go. Right. Bad memory.
I think we should talk about that somewhere in Expensify this week.
If anyone wants to talk about TypeScript, I would love to have that conversation with you, and I can give you all kinds of history on like why we don't have TypeScript.
Okay, there we go.
Decisions that led to that,
Yes.
but it doesn't mean that we can't do TypeScript in the future.
But let's have the conversation regardless, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Thank
might be
Tim.
drink, and we'll talk about it.
Awesome.
Cool, okay. Any others? No? All right, well, yeah. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
So far, are there any plans to test like environments for that when accounting is part of the app? Pretty important.
So the question, sorry, I didn't quite catch it.
Multiple environments. Yeah. No.
Yeah, so we do, yeah. I think we're already operating staging in production for the new app, yeah. So we'll certainly replicate exactly what we've been doing.
All the accounting is going to be also part of those.
Yes.
Yes, yeah.
Both environments, yeah. Yeah. And then also there's the kind of the workspace we can just do to test as well. So there's a couple ways to go about it. But basically, like Tom said, what we have is what we're going to keep doing.
There's a question from the room.
Cool.
Will we ever use hooks?
Oh, that's another hot topic. That's come up before. I think, again, we're not going to say yes or no on that one. I think we should actually have the conversation, not just in this format, but in Expensify, or if we have to fall back on Slack because of threads. But like both, yeah, I think both of those have come up several times. So let's let's like agree what the best path forward is, and so we can move from there.
Yeah, and I think, over the course of sort of more recently, we've got better at sort of communicating our problem, solution, and grounding, solutions all in like what is really the root cause. And so I think as we've sort of communicated that more, then hopefully we can have that discussion which is grounded in what is the problem that, Hook or TypeScripts and so on will solve. So,
or what does it create as well?
Yes,
right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, good questions. Yep.
Before doing all of that, you have planned to streamline the developer experience? Because it's quite hard to get started.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's actually something that we admittedly started and I don't think is moving forward super quickly. It's just better, obviously, documentation, better onboarding experience and all that kind of stuff. Is that specifically what you mean, or is there anything more specific?
I was more thinking about automated tools like Formatter or...
Okay. Gotcha.
That'd be pretty cool. Yeah, I'd love to chat to you about that.
Yeah, same. I would love to get like more specific feedback on like that kind of stuff, because again, overall, I think that is a pain point that we're finding is like, it's, if you even look in the open source room, it's kind of a recurring question, like how do I do this, how do I do that? And like we're repeating enough now that either there's pain points that we need to fix with tools or documentation.
And it's just like the to get into the community, there's such a wall because we're in Slack right now, you have to send us an email and then we're like, cool, we'll get an admin to add you at some point, and then they'll add you. And it's just like, why? Like, we should just be able to have the announce rooms like we have for this week, where you can just sign up, join, and get on your way. So.
One reason why not is Spain.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
I didn't hear that one.
Spam.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, spam is a real thing, yes.
Yeah, so moderation, but I think that's already on our radar in some capacity. As Daniel was mentioning, part of Expensify Chat and launching that to conferences is that we're going to have to account for moderation. So I think we're already getting a head start on that stuff.
Yeah, you had a question as well?
Yeah, thinking about like, it's great that you managed to pay back 1.2 million fixed things.
Yeah.
And I was discussing with a lot of you this morning that you all often fix things upstream. Are you also planning to sponsor some libraries that you would use?
Yeah.
Because they can get better rankings every day.
I mean, we've definitely sponsored libraries. I think we can absolutely do more. Like, again, if our feeling on that is, I would say we're very, very interested in that. So like, if there are libraries that obviously core to us and that we can benefit the maintainer as well, like, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
and in fact, I mean, I don't know if you want to go into more detail, but we've done that several times in 2022.
I think we set up like a fund specifically for that.
Yeah.
Kind of like budget.
I think it's through GitHub, but some obviously libraries just don't have, they're not part of that program on GitHub or something. So, I mean, I'd love to pick your brains on how do we identify the people to approach and say that like, hey, we'd like to sponsor your library.
Yeah, I mean, because I would say also like that's sometimes a pain point.
Right.
I mean, there are some libraries that.
How'd you get hold of someone?
Yeah, how do we get a hold of somebody? Like we actually want to fix some things. We have several PRs that are just kind of sitting there. And so, yeah, more interaction with libraries and sponsorships, we love that.
Yeah, just to mention, to add something, I heard yesterday that you hired a contractor to work on the open source library, and it will be great to first contact the maintainer and to see if it's available to implement this feature.
Oh, that's interesting. That's a pretty easy change in the process.
Yeah, and I think once we have those relationships, then we can do that more efficiently. For sure, I think it's a really good idea.
We have done that before, at least I have.
Yeah, we've done it, but inconsistently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've also developed like more of a reputation in the community now, so people might have heard of us or seen us around. So.
It's definitely an area for 2023. Maybe we should just mentally add that to the slide, right? That's an area for improvement.
Totally.
Yeah.
I've got kind of a question for the external contributors in the room, and it's that do you often find that you are struggling to build new features because you're waiting on changes that are like back-end? Because a lot of times when we're building features, we can make our back-end changes and front-end changes in parallel and test it out like the full flow. You ever run into frustration
Oh, that's good to hear.
Yeah, so we're just starting to help you write also features and functionality. Right before that, it was just bug fixing, so that wasn't really any backend stuff for us. But now that we are also starting with the features, it would definitely be cool to be more involved with the backend stuff. Like we talked earlier about maybe having the possibility of running that version of the backend without giving access to the code. But stuff like that would be helpful. That go and speed things up.
And like maybe would be helpful to understand, like even taking reactions as an example, like what were some slowdowns that you guys experienced there?
It wasn't big slowdowns. I would say overall we were quite good synchronized.
Yeah.
But there was a time where I was waiting for the backend API to be the changes to be available on staging.
Got it.
So I would actually test my code against the API.
Uh-huh.
And I was like waiting for 2 days for that. And then once the API was there, I realized okay, there's some issues with the code, and I had to make some changes. And all of that could have been even faster if I would have early access to the API.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
Yeah, I think really that you're coming to the end of Reactions as the project, and one of the things at the end is to do a project wrap up and go through what went well, what could be improved. And as you guys get more experience with that design doc process, it'd be wicked if you could make sure to do that, because it's valuable information as you guys are somewhat going through it first,
Yeah. There you go. I mean, yeah, maybe there's even just, talking out loud, but maybe there's even something more informal we could do to give them like a window into like, here's, in your case, because you worked with them, right? Like, here's the changes I'm working on, and like share a part of what it like, obviously opening up the entire thing or even copying is like, there's going to be a lot of considerations there.
The backend team development state, for example, backend developers copying the backend, they can just host it and they can put it in the environment. They don't have to have it locally. They just, I'm downloading the backend feature, see if it's working for you. They can just put up the API URL in the configuration of the document tab, and they can use it because they still have to wait a bit, wait the backend developer to make the future or the fix in order to test their code.
Right.
As soon as the backend guy is done, they can just share their Ngrok or something like that.
Somebody fell off the stage.
Yeah, somebody just fell. Yeah.
Also, just something to add on, actually something that we could do that I was just thinking about is that rather than you waiting for the code to go to staging, which could sometimes take a day or longer, right? If there are like some quick fixes, we have like a bunch of staging servers, we can actually instantly move a code to staging and you can immediately even test it. And it won't permanently be there, it'll just be there temporarily. So you can test your changes, you can immediately make changes, have that back and forth. And if it's all good, then we just revert the code from staging and then push it as an actual PR to review. Something to speed up the process.
That's an interesting idea as well.
And we should maybe do something like that.
Yeah. Well, especially in these like, it probably depends as well. Like this is a good example of like, it's a big feature. We want to get it out efficiently and all that kind of stuff. More scalably, because that still takes work on our side, right?
Yeah.
So we might want to figure out exactly where we do that, where we don't as well.
Can I bring up another problem for me? It's not in this specific area, but it's
Yeah.
related to code style, and it's because we have a time difference where I'm from, where you're at, and I have to communicate on the next day. And sometimes my PR would get blocked because of a code style issue, and that would take 1 day more to fix it. And sometimes I'll fix it, and again, because of the code style issue, that takes another day. And it's a bit, if there's a way to automate the code styling stuff, like, just sometimes it's impossible because it's regarding the name of a construct or something. But when it's just about having the comments in the right way and stuff like that.
I love that idea. I think time zones they're a pain for everyone. And I agree, like the solution seems pretty simple on this one.
Well,
Tim, don't roll your eyes.
But that's my main blocker because I'm not working full time as a
Right.
So I have a limited budget, and if I expire it for the day or for the week, I'm not unavailable, and this thing is hanging.
Yeah. I like Go ahead.
We have our own ESLint plugins that we write, and
So we could-
we'll pay for contributions to that as well. So anything that can be automated, especially with ESLint.
Good point.
Yeah, wicked.
I mean, we could also take it a step further and just kind of emulate our ESLint setup with Prettier, and that way you wouldn't have to worry about it. You just save the file and it would automatically format it, according to whatever rules we agree on. Yeah.
Cool.
That's awesome.
These are all good. Hopefully, did we write some of these down or?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Because
Basically, if you talk about something that you want to make happen, put it in this room.
Oh, cool. Let's do that.
Yeah.
I just don't know. I don't know. These are all really great ideas. I don't want to lose them.
I was just telling Shirag, I was like, put it in the
Okay, cool.
That sounds like
Thank you.
If you want anything to happen after this,
Yeah.
get it in the room. We'll review the room and make sure we pull everything out.
Or we can help start a conversation. Whatever happens to be, let's just capture what we talked about here.
Can you go back to the QR code so people can join their?
Yeah, sure. Here it is. All the way back to the beginning. There we go. Ta-da. Bit.
Do you have a timeline for pitching upward? Since I'm thinking we could actually like do the global reimbursement.
So I
go
think that obviously the prerequisite is global payments and global reimbursement. That's looking somewhere for EC3. So, from there on, hopefully we can do that,
I mean, you know us in timelines. We don't like to commit necessarily. But I mean, again, I think we mentioned those two things the first in terms of like deprecating Slack and more or less deprecating at least parts of Upwork. Like those are the two big initiatives for 2023. So first half, I mean, I don't know. What do you want to say? I don't know. Yeah.
Two things. First is QR code doesn't deep link to the app.
Oh, I think it's so good. You have to
I think you have to refresh. There's a bug that we're working on that one. It doesn't deep link to the app? Oh, yeah, sorry, okay. That's another one. That's another issue.
The link that was posted in the announced channel that comes up with an error, it's not here, and I can't refresh it on an iOS app.
I think you have to do mobile web, right? And actually, you have to do staging as well.
And then
It's a process, but we're working through it. I'm happy to help you get it set up. I ran through the same issue as well after the talk. Cool. Yeah. Thanks so much. This is really, really awesome to hear a lot of ideas. Looking forward to, obviously taking some of these to at least an agreement, a resolution, and fixing some things that clearly are pain points and we want to make better. So thanks a lot.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.